Hello, everybody. We're giving it another minute for people to join. Welcome already for this webinar. We can just wait another minute. For those who just joined, we're giving it a couple of more seconds for people to join. I saw that many people are joining just now. All right, then. Welcome, everybody, to this showcase of the backup project and the following industry forum. My name is Malte von Tottleben. I work as a research consultant at Empirica, which is a Germany-based SME, and we are conducting research in digital health projects. Most of the time I spend on the assessment of socioeconomic costs and benefits of digital health solutions. As a start, let me first introduce to you all our panelists that are here today. But before that, I'll give the hand or the virtual microphone to Professor Alejandro Frangi, who was originally planning to host us today in Leeds if the COVID-19 situation had not caused us to move this meeting online. So welcome, Alejandro.
So thanks, Malte. So it's a great pleasure to host you virtually. In some way, spiritually, still in Leeds. This event was anticipated as an opportunity to show the work that we've been doing as a consortium in the backup project. So I'm professor in the University of Leeds, both in the School of Computing and the School of Medicine. And we are very excited to host this event. And I know that there is a number of colleagues from the University of Leeds online that I would be very keen to follow up at the end of the event. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Elios, who has been the coordinator and the mastermind behind this project. So thanks and welcome to everyone.
Thank you, Alejandro. Let me also, so we've just heard about Helios de Rosario. I'll now introduce all our panelists. Helios is a senior researcher at the Institute of Biomechanics of Valencia and the coordinator of this backup project. Then we have Milton Hoss. He's a colleague to Alejandro Frangi, who we've just heard. Milton is working as research technology officer at the University of Leeds. Within the backup project, he leads the architecture development and the deployment of the backup platform. Third, we do have Jonathan Hill, who is a reader in physiotherapy at Kiel University. He's known for his back pain research on risk stratification tools, such as the START back, and as well as the clinical outcome tools for musculoskeletal pain, including the MSK-HQ tool. Wendy Dolossi has a background in computer sciences and e-health technologies. She's a researcher at the Rössing Research and Development Center, and she's also a member of the Biomedical Signals and Systems Group at the University of Twente. The Self-Back Rehabilitation module is presented by Kerstin Bach. Kerstin is an associate professor for AI and computer science at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology at NTNU. Together with her colleagues Paul and Anna from the Department of Public Health and Nursing, she leads NTNU's work in backup. Javier Teles Chacon is the innovation manager at GMV. GMV is a technology business group working on telecommunication solutions and the developer of the Antari professional home care platform. Isaac de Castro works in the management control at MATS, which is a Spain-based labor insurance company. And also I want to introduce Stephanie Janssen-Kosterink, who works as a researcher at Rössing Research and Development Center together with Wendy. Stephanie is an expert on the clinical and social evaluation of various e-health solutions. Now that you know already something about us, I would like to launch a poll that you can respond on just now. So I brought this to the screen just now. This will help us to better understand also our attendees' professional background just a little bit more. So while this poll is running for a few seconds, let me hand over to that was Alejandro presented already. So just go ahead and fill in the poll for me. And we do have the response coming in. Just give you a couple of seconds. All right, so many of you voted already. We do have just 5 selections to choose from. Thank you very much. All right, I'll close the poll in a couple of seconds. Okay. So what we see is this is the result where people are coming from, quite some people from education, some SMEs and industry representatives, and some people also from other backgrounds. Now, without further ado, let us start with a few slides by Helios introducing the backup project. Helios.
Okay, so is the screen sharing? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Fine. Thank you, Ben. Okay, so let me check. Oh, sorry, you're seeing the full screen. Okay.
So now we're seeing your PowerPoint view.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but I'm seeing. I'm going to switch to the full PowerPoint, if possible. Okay. Oh, sorry. No, to this one. Sorry. Sorry. I'm going to move to this other one. Okay. Now it's okay, I think. Okay. No, but this is not.
Here we go.
Correct.
I was there just for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is the one that I want to show. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So well, okay, this one. Sorry for the for this. Okay, here what I want to do first is to comment that the backup project that is the topic of the of this industry forum is a research and innovation action funded by the European Commission under the Horizon 2020 program.
Connected to mobile device.
Sorry? Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is a project in which we are 13 partners from different countries, from 9 different countries who are participating here. This project started 2 years ago and is scheduled to be finished next year, although we expect to continue its development and exploitation with more involvement of users and industry partners. And actually, that is the reason for this event today. In a nutshell, the concept of backup is a healthcare platform composed of different services that integrate the prognostic models for non-specific neck and low back pain based on multidimensional clinical information in order to support a more efficient management of this problem. And it is our idea to have a place where we put together data from multiple dimensions and scales, from the biological scale to socioeconomic factors, workplace, lifestyle aspects that affect the course of this disease, and model the course of pain, risk of recurrence, function, and cost. Although this is only the broad perspective, the big picture that we are going to explain in more detail during the following sessions.
Thank you, Helios, for this brief introduction of the Becker project. You will now continue with Helios will now continue with a handful of more slides on how data analysis tools can be used to improve the care of neck and low back pain.
Okay, so I'm changing the slides.
Right.
So
let's see if you can bring up the next presentation. Yep.
Yeah. So it's okay now. Okay, so moving to full mode. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So as said, I want to explain the motivation of the project and the general idea of the platform first. So to start with, I would like to say that the motivation for backup is in these figures that, of course, many of you already know, and is that low back pain, also neck pain, is the leading cause for years lived with disability in Western Europe, and also one of the main reasons for GP consultations. This may not be a life-threatening problem, but it does threaten the quality of life of many people and also the sustainability of a healthcare system itself. Because 10% of first medical contact may not be, is really a lot, and the problem is that they are not very well managed. And even the prestigious journal, The Lancet, published 2 years ago when we started the project, a special series on low back pain, calling for urgent measures to reduce variability in first-line decision-making, care with a low value and over-medicalization, and also to promote self-management, patient empowerment, and to identify risks of poor prognosis. This is a problem that we believe that does not only deserve more research, but that also deserves a groundbreaking approach, which is why we are proposing, we are working on this. Now, looking at this from a historical perspective, we could say that the research on neck and low back pain has been done during decades with changing directions. So first researchers nearly 100 years ago saw it as a mechanical problem related to intervertebral pressures, postures, and loads. And it was not until much later that it was acknowledged that both the causes and the remedies of pain, be it of neck, back, or any other type, actually involve the whole psychological and social dimensions of the individual, since actually it does matter if you have a stable employment or not, or if you are rich or poor, or if you are happy or sad. And now, in the last few years, we are also starting to know about the neurological and biological factors of pain. But the problem is that despite all this research and all of the increasing insights from the biopsychosocial model of pain and the recent interest in biomarkers, in spite of all of this, we still have not been able to effectively tackle the problem of back pain at the population level. And nowadays, prevalence, impact on everyday life and work, prognosis still remains very similar as 20 years ago. So our hypothesis, the basis of our project, stems from this, that we see neck and low back pain as the prototype of the multifactorial health problem that involves all the scales of the human being. And we see it as the ideal target for the tools that are used in silico medicine. So this is a problem with many facets, explored by researchers of different fields that have collected different evidences and with different tools, and which have obtained so far only partial answers. The best evidence for treatments currently comes from clinical trials that tell us what are the most effective treatments for the majority. But however, patients what patients need is not solutions for the majority, but solutions, personalized solutions for them. And our hypothesis is that we can obtain more personalized results and actually improve treatments if we put together the pieces, the different pieces of the puzzle. If we combine those evidence-based recommended treatments with tailored self-management and predictive models for the initial risk stratification that are obtained from the most recent research. And then if we collect new data from multiple sources that include first-line treatment selection, self-report questionnaires, wearable devices, biological samples, physical tests and examinations, many things that may help us update and improve the prediction models. Sorry. Now, what we already have is the knowledge that is gathered in our own and others' studies. We've also got the tools that are used by in silico medicine to merge data, models from different health domains. And we've got also data. We've got data from multiple studies and the opportunity to collect more. And what we plan to achieve is the creation of an online tool or a set of online tools that will include a portal attractive and useful for clinicians and patients, which will help them make an initial stratification and also make the best shared decisions with respect to matched treatments and self-management, according to the prognostic estimation of future pain, disability, and work outcomes. And we also expect that this tool will also facilitate the collection of data from the many domains that we are aiming at through patient monitoring, guidance of onward treatments in other contexts after that first contact. And backup will not only run the models that we have defined so far to make the predictions, but will also learn from the new data to improve the predictions and our knowledge of the problem. And it is our intention that this improvement and this extension of the knowledge that backup may have comes from the participation of more stakeholders, from new industry partners, and from which, of course, we expect that we can raise the interest of many of you, so that you help us to make this progress in the future steps of backup.
Thank you, Helios, for the presentation on the data analysis tools. As a note, if there are questions regarding this presentation or any of the following presentations, you can send your questions using the questions pane on your GoToWebinar window, and we will take up the questions if possible during the last 30 minutes Q&A of this event. We will now continue with Milton presenting the backup platform and architecture.
Thanks, Martin. Well, the goal of this platform is to support neck and low back pain research and clinicians to develop new methods and solutions that can be integrated in the clinical environment to improve healthcare and quality of life of patients with neck and low back pain. Backup has an integrative approach in which researchers from different disciplines are integrating their tools, their methods, and their data sets in the same platform. To build this environment, we took into account the translation process, which includes at least 3 major phases. The research and development phase, in which these methods and tools are developed. The clinical assessment phase, in which these methods are evaluated and validated by experts and clinicians. And the technology transfer phase, which is related to the effective translation of the solutions into the healthcare environment. On each of these phases, there are specific tasks and specific stakeholders. The first phase is mostly done in the academic environment, and it involves the development of concepts and methods, the scientific validation of these methods, and at some point it involves the ethical approval process that will allow to move to the next phase. The second phase usually happens in healthcare organizations where these prototypes are tested, the methods are validated by clinicians and experts, and also involves more complex processes such as health economics, ethics, and governance. The third phase is mostly led by the industry and involves other aspects such as compliance with regulations, business, commercialization, and also the integration and adoption of these new services into the clinical setting. This is a long process that in the real life can take several years. One of the goals of the backup platform is to streamline this translation process and accelerate the deployment of tools that can improve patient healthcare. To do this, the backup platform provides a collaborative environment that supports each of these phases and each of these stakeholders. This is a cloud-based, scalable, and data-intensive computational environment based on the Multics platform that has been developed at the University of Leeds, and it has been especially designed to support neck and low back pain research. For the research and development phase, the platform provides advanced tools to facilitate research activities, a robust data warehouse to integrate multidisciplinary data, a flexible development environment based on virtualization and containerization, and scalable resources, cloud resources, to test and validate machine learning and deep learning models. For the clinical assessment phase, the platform allows to develop proof of concept prototypes that will consume or will exploit the models that have been generated in the previous phase. This will facilitate the clinical validation of these methods and prototypes. And in terms of data collection, the platform provides secure methods to upload data from different centers into an integrated and shared data repository. This will be used to retrain the models or to validate them with large data sets. For the technology transfer phase, the platform supports a transparent process for the management of intellectual property, including controls and handshaking mechanisms for the use and sharing of data and tools. It provides methods to assess the cost of the implementation based on the current cost deployed in the cloud environment. And another important feature in this platform is the use of FHIR-based API connectors and standard terminology codes that will support the interoperability with external platforms. So the backup platform provides a robust environment to accelerate the development of new methods, the validation of these methods, and the translation into the clinical environment. In this project, we have partners that will inject data into the platform, other partners that will develop tools and models, other will evaluate these models, and we also have external platforms that will consume these solutions. A number of tools have been implemented in the backup platform. This diagram shows just some of them. And as you can see, each of these solutions is in a different stage of the development. Some of them are still in the academic environment, for example, the glycomics biomarkers, which are in an exploratory phase. Others are in the clinical validation phase. This is the case of the patient stratification models. And others are in the commercialization phase. This is the case of Cellvac. But the main goal of this platform is to support all these developments on each stage and integrating the data and tools into a unified system targeting neck and low back pain disease. In terms of architecture, 3 existing platforms have been integrated in the backup system to provide this unified environment. This diagram represents these 3 platforms. In red, the professional platform, Antari Home Care. This is an existing e-health platform developed by GMB, which is the interface for clinicians and patients. In blue, the research platform. This is Multics, a research-oriented platform in which models are being deployed and tested. In green, the self-management platform. This is Cellvac, a smartphone application which facilitates and improves the self-management of neck and low back pain disease. This is the main interface for patients. These 3 systems have been integrated using secure protocols and standard API connectors. This diagram shows the basic connectivity between these 3 components. In the red area, which is the clinical platform, you can see the different modules that are available for clinicians. These modules are actually our user interfaces that programmatically invoke the different computational models that are exposed in the research platform. This is how backup system works. Models are exposed as web services and in turn can be used by external systems. During the last 2 years, a number of modules have been defined in the backup system. Each model interacts in different ways with the different components that I just mentioned. And each module uses one or more models to make their prediction. These machine learning models or statistical models are deployed in the research platform. And these models can be improved and retrained once new data is available in the system. This is a modular environment in which new models and models can be dynamically integrated as they become available, and this can be consumed by external systems in the same way. The research platform is the core component of the backup system. This is Multics. It stores the data required for the development of models. It also exposes the models that will be used by external systems. The research platform is integrated by 6 components: the data sets, analysis tools, workflows, computational resources, exploration and visualization tools, and collaborative tools. Each of these components has a specific section in the web interface of the backup platform. On each section, there is a catalog of assets, and each asset is represented with a card containing basic information. For example, in the data section, there is a catalog of dataset. Each card in this catalog represents a data repository. This can be a database in the case of structured data, or it can be an object store for non-structured data such as image or files. And each card has a different set of permissions. If you don't have permission, you can request this using the same web interface. Something similar is available for the analysis area, where different tools are available on demand. In this case, each card represents an analysis tool, an algorithm, or a model deployed in the platform. And the same applies for workflows and visualizations. So the platform has an innovative approach designed to integrate the efforts in neck and low back pain research. The consortium is composed by partners that are in charge of data collection, partners that are generating tools and models, others in charge of the validation, and other partners have external systems that consume these models. All the data collected in the platform will be exposed and will be available for researchers and the whole neck and low back pain scientific community beyond the end of this project. In the current stage of the project, in which some models are being clinically validated and are almost ready for exploitation, we want to start this conversation with industrial partners and assess the viability of the adoption of these solutions by the industry and in real-world clinical setting. This was my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Milton, for this overview on the platform and its architecture. Again, if there's any questions already, please use the questions pane on your GoToWebinar interface, and we're happy to take these up at the end of the event. I will now hand back to Helios, who will present our approach to the integration of clinical data from various different sources into one platform.
Okay. Okay. So here what I want to present is very briefly a picture of the heterogeneity of information that backup is dealing with related to the problem represented by neck and low back pain. And then we will go in the next sessions through different specific use cases. So first, I want to start by commenting that we have to take into account that neck and low back pain is a problem that is an heterogeneous problem because it consists of many problems in different domains. It is a problem for patients because it decreases their quality of life and makes them suffer either physically or psychologically, and it also reduces their capacity to do things. Also from the physical and from the psychological perspective. And from the community, taking into account the community, we can look at the loss of the productivity due to work absence or just decreased performance of workers who suffer pain, also the great amount of healthcare resources spent on them, and also, depending on the legal framework, at the problems that can be derived from insurance, like the proportionality of compensations, and in some cases, even the suspicion of negative effects of such compensations on the course of pain. And this is, of course, also a big challenge for science because pain is something that the traditional tools of medicine do not grasp so well or have difficulties to do. And in each of those domains, we work with different kinds of data, with subjective data from questionnaires, physical measurements, biomarkers, also economic data related to the management of this in healthcare, insurance, and so on. And what we are doing is confronting this with a likewise heterogeneous and complementary consortium of institutions who are involved in this project. We are dealing this from the technology point of view, as Milton has just presented, and also taking into account the markets and users, and that's the reason why we have some partners involved in this, and we are also now presenting this to the industry. But now I will focus a bit more on the heterogeneity of this consortium that we have around the green globe that are the ones expert in science and research around neck and low back pain. We can see that there are institutions specialized in pain science, in clinical decision support systems, ergonomics, psychology, biomechanics, biology, all those fields that neck and low back pain are related to. Okay, and now the point is that here in backup, what we are doing is trying to coordinate the research of those many heterogeneous partners who are working with many different data. Here is a brief selection of some of the background projects that you may already know that are working with neck and low back pain, from tools addressed to manage or to make a prognostic and stratification of musculoskeletal disorders or back pain in particular, the self-back project that has to do with self-management of neck and low back pain, or also studies that collect data and phenotypes of people either specifically with low back pain or in general. These projects are involved in also in backup, and each one is providing us different perspectives that we are coordinating with the platform that has been presented. And this includes different types of interventions, from self-management, mostly based on physical activity and training materials, through rehabilitation practices and support to return to work. And the fact, and we also are taking into account many factors that spread from the inner factors to the outermost ones. By outer factors, what we mean is those that do not depend on the individual, but on his or her occupational and social context, including family and job. While on the other end, we have information about biomarkers, and where we are concentrating on research about the glycans, the molecular structures that have been studied in these projects that I have commented on before. And in the middle, of course, we have physical and psychological tests and patient-reported outcome measures and the clinical history of the patient. And these are the use cases that will be presented in more detail in the following presentations.
Thank you, Helios, for presenting our approach to the integration of clinical data from various sources. Over the next minutes, we will hear the first of 3 examples for the application of backup into practice. The first one being the first contact web app that serves as a patient stratification tool, which will be presented by Jonathan.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the hottest day of the year, certainly here in the UK. So as you will have heard, backup is a big, complex project, and what I'm going to do now is just tell you about one component, which is the first contact web app that we've been developing. Just to talk to you about the context for a second, I mean, there's just been such an explosion of digital health in terms of the provision of back and neck pain care. We all sort of thought it would be a 4 or 5 year process before we really saw digital innovation in this area, but clearly with COVID-19, it's just it's all come so much quicker than we were expecting. We've got representatives here from the Childside to Physiotherapy in the UK, I know on this webinar, and I've heard that their website, which is around digital health physiotherapy provision, is currently one of their most popular web pages. And so we're really seeing a thirst from the community asking for solutions. Some of the key problems clinically that's really happened with remote consultations, particularly if you think of first line decision making for back and neck pain, is that there's these two things going on. There's a lack of confidence happening in the community among clinicians because of the fact that they're having to sit on risk and diagnostic uncertainty without actually seeing the patient face to face. And also there's a sense that there's just a huge explosion of variation, and what we're wanting to do obviously is try and reduce variation. And so innovation and digital health is coming in and saying, well, look, we can help to standardize things, we can help to give a systematized approach, we can support consultations. And the challenge for digital health is doing all of that and supporting decision making without losing the ability to really personalize care and to make sure that we empower patients well and do that piece well. And at Keele, we've been doing a number of projects in this e-health space, from the MSK tracker, which is all around evaluating MSK services, the Start MSK, which I'm going to talk about shortly, and then Backup, which is implementing research online, and Support Back, which is a project all about an online treatment module for back pain. So let me just tell you about the Stratified care research story, just briefly, that introduces this first contact tool. So many of you will know about StartBack, where we developed a tool to do risk stratification back in 2008. We went on, did feasibility and pilot work around that, and then we published a randomized control trial showing both clinical and cost effectiveness of using a stratified approach. And we've also gone on with colleagues of mine, such as Professor Nadine Foster, leading work around impact analysis of that. And how does it actually work when you take it out into routine practice? And all of that led to StartBack being recommended within NICE. What we've done as a team is we've said, well, surely it's not just back pain where risk stratification has a place. What about other musculoskeletal conditions such as neck pain, such as knee, shoulder, and multi-site pain? And so we've been busy developing the Start MSK tool rather than just the Start Back tool. So using a large cohort of patients coming through general practice to identify prognostic indicators for pain and disabling outcome 6 months later. And we've also been able to now do both a pilot trial and a main trial, which we're just at the point of starting to analyze the results, looking in general practice when we get GPs to use a system based in EMIS that helps and facilitates them to use the risk stratification approach. Is that, again, clinically effective? Is it cost effective? And what's the experience both for clinicians and for patients going through that? So we're just coming to the end of that, but it's exciting to be involved in Backup, which is already seeking to try and implement a stratified care approach for back and neck pain on this cloud-based platform. So the first contact web app sits very much within this sort of professional platform. It's designed for clinicians. What does it include? Just before I show it to you, well, there's the implementation of the Start MSK tool, and that's all done with SNOMED CT coding. We've got individualized predictions of pain, function, and work absence. And that's new. In the past, subgrouping has been about low, medium, and high. It's not given individual predictions of an individual's expected pain, function, and work absence in the future. And what's exciting is with the Multics backend that you've already heard, which Milton's presented, we've got the opportunity to do what we call automated model retraining, where our predictions can be improved as new data comes in. We've also got the match treatment selection tool. So Start Back has had just low, medium, and high, was very broad in terms of what the match treatments were. What we've done with Start MSK is actually identify evidence-based match treatments that link to those risk strata. We've also put in a self-management resources tool to just help clinicians to pick appropriate resources for their patients very easily, resources that are reliable and credible and trustworthy. We've also got an automated patient consultation summary letter, so that at the end of their first contact consultation, the patient is provided with useful information that they can take home. And lastly, we've embedded some user statistics, if I can say it, user statistics, which are really about showing clinicians what treatment choices they're making for their patients, let's say low, medium or high risk patients, and how does that compare to other clinicians, in case they're a bit of an outlier and they like, for example, to inject every shoulder that they see or something like that. So let me demonstrate the platform to you. So hopefully if I flick through to here, you can see, okay, this is the home page. It's got a sign in. I'm going to sign in here.
We're seeing a Google Drive right now. Yeah.
Oh,
here we go.
Can you see it now?
Should be good now, yeah.
Great. Okay, sorry about that. So it's probably just a little bit slow. So here's the backup first contact tool. It's got a home page. I'm logged in as Jonathan Hill. We can have it at the moment in English or Spanish. We hope to increase the number of languages that it's available for. So I'm going to begin using the tool. I've got an eligibility page, first of all, just to make sure that they haven't got red flags that we wouldn't think were appropriate for the prognostics to be done on this individual. But if I can confirm that they haven't, I then get to see the Start MSK 10 questions. So I'm just going to complete these a bit randomly, just selecting each of these 10 questions. These would be asked to the patient. And then we've got 2 additional questions in backup, which were specifically questions that help predict work absence. So after that's completed, you've got a list here of all of the different items. You've got the subgrouping. So this patient turns out to be medium risk. Here you can see the predicted score. And this is the predicted function at 2 and 6 months. And it's the level of difficulties to do usual activities. And you can see that if this patient had more pain, you can see how that affects their predictions over time. If their long-term expectations weren't quite so high, that affects their predicted score, etc. Within this page, you can also drill down and have a look at visualizations in a little bit more depth around both predicted pain and function scores for that individual. We've also hidden, you can see the work absence predictions. That's not on the first page here because we didn't think it was appropriate for patients to see that. But if you drill into that, you can then have a look, and this particular individual's got very low probability of any work absence, either short-term or long-term, in the way that I've completed it. So that gives you the individual predictions, and what you then can go on to do is look at the match treatments. Now, as this was a high-risk patient, all 20 evidence-based options are available. If they were a low-risk patient, you'd only see the top 6. If they're a medium, you see the top 14. And if they're a high risk, you can obviously see all of them. And what that does is it helps to nudge clinician behavior so that they're working within a restricted level of a set of options for the patient, treatment options, which are appropriate to their risk level. So what we've done is a couple of things to make this nice and easy. One, you can select them as a clinician. You can say, yep, I want these treatment options for this patient. But all of that then helps to populate a summary letter, which the patient's going to receive. So, for example, your clinician recommends you may want to try an online forum to provide support for your condition using this link. And that's for around enhanced self-management support. That's particularly for those we'd like that to be chosen for those with low health literacy, who struggle with just self-management advice. We've also got a nice, easy self-management resource picker here, so you can have a look at lots of trusted online resources that you might think, so this is back pain, so I'm just picking a few of those. And that then all gets saved. You can see now all those links are available for the patient when they get their discharge letter. So all of those options we can save. I'm going to select a few medium and high risk options for this patient because they were high risk. And what that then does is it populates the consultation summary, which you can then either send to your patient via mobile phone or email address, or you can even print it out. And they get their summary, and it says the actions for the clinicians and the actions that are recommended for that patient to do. Now, all of that's helpful and useful, but one of the things that I talked about earlier was user statistics. And if I go here under Jonathan Hill and have a look at my patients, I can see all the different patients that I've seen, and I can have a look at how they've scored on the questions and the summary letter and the match treatments that were selected. I can also see user statistics, and I can see what proportion I've delivered per protocol of low risk, and I can compare to some of my colleagues. That's Daniela van der Wint here, is doing a terrible job at treating low risk patients, etc., etc. And it helps to see if I'm a bit of an outlier in terms of the sorts of treatments. At the moment, that's just divided into low, medium, and high, but we plan to be able to give feedback user statistics around individual treatments so that someone might see if they're a high, I don't know, user of MRI scans, for example, for low risk patients or medium risk patients, etc., which is all helpful in terms of nudging behavior. So I hope that's been a useful introduction. Just to let you know, where are we up to? Well, this is very much still work in progress. We are only now just starting user testing with clinical experts. We're about to do a big online survey via Twitter with first contact clinicians across Europe, just to really refine the clinical content, make sure that the predictions are as good as we can get them because they're particularly new, get the consultation summary letter as good as we can, and also those user statistics working well. Those are the pieces that are particularly new to the backup platform. We'll also be involving patients and getting their feedback, and with the support of RRD from the Netherlands, we'll be getting some interface testing as well. So that's where we plan to go with all of this. So what are the implications and opportunities for you? Well, as I've said, you know as industry partners in this area, physio provision and MSK provision for back and neck pain is rapidly changing, not just physio, in general practice, in occupational health, in A&E. And digital technologies are leading that change. We are trying to design research that really helps and support that kind of innovation through good prediction models and good tools that help to inform decision making using that information. And I feel we all need to collaborate to do this well and to find solutions for the future and to make a difference. So I guess my challenge to you is, having seen that particular component in backup, is that something that you'd be interested in being an early adopter with? And if you would like to get involved in and have a proposal, and we could talk further, because we're starting to plan our future research projects, then do let's talk and let's find some opportunities to work together in the future. That's all from me. Many thanks, Malta.
Thank you, Jonathan, for this insight in the First Contact web app. Again, if there's questions, we're happy to take these up on the questions pane. To get even more practical, we will now see Wendy's presentation on the prediction models that we're using and where in the care pathways these prediction models are taking effect. So Wendy, please.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Do you see on my screen? Yes, okay. Yep. Okay, and welcome to the audience. I will tell something about prediction models and where in the care pathways they are taking effect. I'm also focusing on two models based on machine learning. But first I will explain more about the care pathways itself. So this is a nice picture from one of the paper I found. And what you see here is that a person's journey in the care pathway, in this case spine related, and in our case neck and low back pain, start in the self-care part. So and after some concerns, then there is they are going to the primary spine care, and if it gets worsened or other conditions, then people are sent to or referred to secondary and tertiary spine care. So in this care pathway, there are different moments prediction models can take into account, and which also can be used for clinical decision support systems. And one of them was just told about by Jonathan, the first contact prediction model. But you can also think of prediction models about what to do in the care, self-care, or when going to make a diagnosis. There can be clinical support to the healthcare professionals, and also in with more complex cases, they can also prediction models build. In this presentation, I focus not on prediction models on treatments, but for the triage, going from the self-care path to the primary spine care, and on the referral. So when it's more complex, what to do, and when should a patient be referred to the secondary or tertiary spine care. And this all data-driven. So in the whole care pathway, data is collected and stored in, for example, electronic health records. So there's a lot of data, and can we see patterns in this data which can predict whether a patient should go to the next step in the healthcare path. So for the triage part, the question was in my research, what are relevant features to classify low back pain? And in this research, 43 features were found, of which 15 were important for the triage, and these were mainly red flags, so serious factors. And this is written down in a paper. For the second part, the referral to tertiary care, this was research done within this within the backup project, and it was about the referral to multidisciplinary biopsychosocial pain rehabilitation. Because there is a lot of data, but not, you have to combine a lot of data to see if the patient was referred. So in this research, we made use of a vignette study in both for both models. And in the vignette study, the participants are shown patient cases on which decisions had to be made. So in backup, it was the decision, should this patient go to pain rehabilitation or not? And a vignette exists of a fixed text, and within this fixed text there are several features. Just the important features we found to be in this case, and the value of these features are changing. So in this way, we got different patient cases on which decisions had to be made. So this was the setup of the online environment of the backup vignette study, and each participant was asked to fill in or to judge 15 vignettes, and if participants were willing to judge extra vignettes, this was also possible. And in the end, machine learning was used on the collected data to get the prediction models out of it. So this is an example of the triage vignette study with the 15 features on which it was asked. And in the end, more than 1,200 vignettes were judged by 63 healthcare professionals. And about 60% of the cases were judged as going to the general practitioner, 30% about the physiotherapist, and 2% on self-care. So it was an imbalanced data set. Next to the vignette study data, in this study, we also collected real-world data together with physical therapy centers and GP centers. And in this way, we collected real-world test data on 38 test cases. In this way, the patient was asked to fill in 15 questions, and the answers on this questionnaire were put into the model that was built on the vignette study data. And the result of this model was compared with the advice of the healthcare professional on this patient. Was this patient on the right place or not? And we used advice of the healthcare professional as the gold standard. And the model was tested with this test data. So this is the machine learning pipeline. And we used the decision tree, random forest, and boosted tree algorithms. And the best working model was the boosted tree model, also on the test set. So it can be improved more. I would like to have this accuracy more than 90%. So for the referral, there were 51 participants who judged 458 vignettes, and also this was an unbalanced data set. So most of the patients were not sent to the pain rehabilitation, yeah, this was if we look at the model performance in this way. In this case, we used the logistic regression model. It was also about 70%, and this we also want to improve. So how can we improve these models? This is by collecting more and integrating more multimodal data, and also to get more good improved reporting of the referral of treatment, triage and referral outcomes, and also treatment outcomes. So this should be reported more in the daily practice during the healthcare pathway. And in the end, if the models are improved higher, then we can implement this in decision support systems and evaluate this in clinical practice. So thank you for your attention, and I will give the word back to Martin.
Thank you, Wendy, for giving us some insight into where the care pathways, our prediction and treatment models actually take effect, and how you use the vignette study to generate evidence for these prediction models. Just a reminder also to our panelists, we have the first questions dropping in. If there's more questions, please post them on the questions pane, and for the panelists, please check if you can respond on any of these. Now we're happy to learn something about a second practical example from Kerstin Bach, who presents the self-management module and its relation to the backup project. Kerstin, please. You are muted yet?
Good afternoon.
Yep. It's working.
Thanks, Malte. My name is Kerstin Bach, and I'm joining you from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Trondheim. The work I'm presenting is on SelfBack and the self-management module within the backup platform, and the work I'm presenting is joint work with Paul Mork and Anna Marcuzzi. The overall idea of the self-management module, or the SelfBack application that I'll be introducing, is to improve self-management of non-specific low back pain, to prevent chronicity, recurrence, and pain-related disability. So the overall idea is to build a tool that helps the patient to manage their pain. And our approach to that is to use artificial intelligence and to build a system that tailors the information to the user and kind of builds a companion to go along the journey to learn self-management. So we built an AI platform or an AI tool that interacts directly with the patient. Currently, we are testing the effectiveness. The first RCT is underway. So the first one is focusing on patients in primary care, and it's running in Denmark and Norway, and we have just passed the primary outcome mark. This RCT has a follow-up of 9 months, so we still have some months to go until all the participants are proceeding through the RCT. And as of Monday, we have started the second RCT, targeting patients referred to secondary care In Norway, we have a system of a waiting list. So once patients are referred to secondary care, there's a waiting list, and this is where we kind of chip in and offer self-PEG as one arm. So how does the intervention work? So we assume that we have a care-seeking user. So this is really important, so that we see the application as an extended arm of the clinician. So we have a user that goes and seeks for help, and if the clinician thinks that this user is suitable, he or she gets referred to the self-PEG intervention. And this means the user is asked to fill out a questionnaire, and the questionnaire consists of a set of standard tools. And these tools are helping us to build a profile. And with this information, we will be able to kick off the AI component. So from this patient profile, we use a methodology called case-based reasoning to find most similar patients that have already undergone the self-PEG intervention, and we pick the positive cases and then basically try to adapt this solution for our new user. So the overall idea of case-based reasoning is to reuse existing experiences and thereby learning as it goes along. And this is also what we have implemented in self-PEG. So we have our most similar patient, and we have a suggestion for the self-management plan. This is then pushed into a mobile app. So this is really where the companion comes in, so something that we all have in our pocket all the time. We also added a wristband, so we have objective measurements of steps. We have a set of an exercise program as well as educational items. So we have these three components that are presented to the user every week, and these components will be reviewed on a weekly basis. So this is how our system starts to learn. So we will capture the information on the objective, on the steps. We will also capture information on the exercises, so to what degree the users were able to do the exercises, as well as to what degree did they read the educational content. And especially the exercise and the educational content is tailored to the user needs. So in the beginning of the week, we ask how much time a user has available, and we provide exercise items that fits in a 15, 20, 30-minute exercise program, as well as we look into the overall information we capture from the questionnaires to tailor the education. So if someone has, for example, sleep problems, we would address this in the educational items, or time management problems if we see they cannot fulfill the goals they set. So we, on the weekly basis, we pick up on the behavior of the patient and then try to react on this and adapt the self-management plan. To give you a little bit of a taste, I have a recording of the app. So this is where you can see the three different components, and then the user are able to look into their achievements. So they are able to look into their step counts. They can also review, can have a look into their exercise program. And as you can see here, we will ask them to manually input the exercises. So basically we show the video, we give a textual explanation on how to do the exercises, and when they are done, we ask them to tell us how many repetitions they have been doing. This is how we measure adherence, and also this is how we tailor the information. So once we usually start with easy exercises and then go to more difficult ones, but also if the system suggested a too difficult one, or a too easy one even, the users are able to skip exercises. And as I mentioned, we also have this educational component which gives some small information about how to self-manage low back pain. And this information can come either as an information item, as you can see here, or in a few weeks, again, as a quiz, so that you can get some badges on answering quizzes correctly. This is the part where we kind of build in AI. But of course, when we're talking about the backup platform, it's also interesting which data we are collecting and also how can this be used. So for example, as I mentioned, we have the questionnaires in the beginning, so we get some basic information on the demographics, pain, function, and as we go along, we fulfill this data. So after the second week or the third week or fourth week, we get more information on how many steps do they take, how well they actually achieve their goals, if there are any barriers. So if we, for example, see that the goals are not achieved, we ask whether there is any barriers in their life so that we can get some more information and possibly can react on it with educational items. So as we go along, we have also some follow-up points, like some major follow-up points, which is after 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months, where we ask the full questionnaire again to get an update of the overall picture. So as you can see, this is really a data set that gives us a nice profile, but also a timeline of a patient. So we will learn how the pain and function and the way a patient is coping actually develops over time. And this is something we can use again to improve the AI or the case-based reasoning engine in finding suitable plans, but also we can learn from this type of data how pain develops and also can make predictions how pain and function could develop over a certain amount of time. This, I hope, gave you a brief overview on how we developed the self-management module. And I'm handing back to Malte, who will guide us further.
Yeah, thank you, Kerstin, for this insight on your approach in the self-back app and the self-management module. Do have a couple of questions also coming in on this presentation, so get back to the file that we developed for that. We will now hear about our third practical example. Javier will present the Antari Home Care platform for the management of neck and low back pain that they are developing at GMV. So Javier, please.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome to this webinar. I would like to introduce you how we, GMV, a private company, a big company, we have integrated the results of the project into our commercial telemedicine platform. And also, I would like to discuss a bit at the end of the entire process that comes from the ideation of putting together a project leaning on artificial intelligence algorithms to the final successful commercialization on a product based on that. GMV is a big company, it's a pure engineering company based in Spain. The main focus of the company is in aerospace. GMV is the sixth leading aerospace company in Europe. And dealing with digital health, we created our digital health department around 15 years ago. The product that we brought into the project is called Antari Professional. It's a commercial telemedicine platform already deployed in several settings in Spain and South America, especially in Peru and Colombia. And basically, it's really a complex platform because it includes both portals for clinicians, for managing the entire setting of a healthcare organization, but also includes a portal for patients, and that's called Untitled Home Care, and that's the focus of this of our platform in this project. It allows online and offline teleconsultations. It allows also to monitor patients, mainly chronic patients at home. It allows clinicians to customize the reports. It allows to create customized educational contents. It can integrate with very different hospital information systems and so on. The platform was designed from the beginning to allow integrating artificial intelligence algorithms. That is, even if the platform is meant to monitor chronic patients, it has been designed so if any company, either GMV or a third-party company, like in this case, Backup, develops an interesting algorithm that we can commercialize, we have a space, so we have designed the platform so it can be adapted readily and easily for it. Okay? And also, integration is a big part of our daily work because we will discuss this a bit later. But any kind of telemedicine platform that really wants to succeed in the market needs to be aware that hospitals, healthcare systems in general, will not easily be adopting new solutions. By new, I mean the solutions that are completely new and solutions that are not completely integrated into their workflow. So we are, our daily work is also based in integrating with hospital electronic records, radiology systems, and so on. So in the screen, you can see a screenshot of Untitled Care. Is the monitoring platform for patients at home. And during the course of the project, we have integrated into it the different models, the different prognosis models that have been discussed so far. So clinicians, this is the view for clinicians, can access very easily the prognosis predictions to see when the patient will have pain. We offer predictions for 2 and 6 months. The probability that this particular patient will cause an absence of work at work, and so on. So we also allow we provide assistance to clinicians for stratified care. The patient can have the tools to self-management, the ability to self-manage their conditions, either back pain, neck pain, and also this information collected at the patient's house is shown, is provided back to the clinician, so they can see the evolution of the patient, and based not also on this, on the prognosis models, but also on the daily information gathered by the platform, they can customize the treatment plan for this particular patient. Okay, I would like to spend the last couple of minutes talking about the path that any kind of artificial intelligence-based algorithms needs from conception to successful commercialization. So in Backup, from the beginning, this consortium was aware that the required steps from creating a predictive model using artificial intelligence techniques to commercializing the resulting process it's going to be difficult. So during all the trajectory of the project that has not yet finished, we have accounted for a number of different barriers that we envision that we would face in one phase or another. For example, clinical validation is required to show end users, mostly clinicians, the effectivity of the solution. So Backup has the tools to conduct this kind of clinical validation, clinical studies, pilot studies, and that's what we are doing right now. Okay? That's something we have heard of up to now. So data quality is important. Suitability of solutions means that in many occasions, companies and research groups focus on solutions that are readily available because they have the data, but at the end, when they present these kind of solutions to the healthcare environment, they face that well, these are not the correct solutions. These solutions are not solving the current problems. So that's something that we address at the beginning of the project. Education, both for clinicians and for patients, are already covered. Both the platform, the research platform, and the clinical platform have customized educational contents. We have from the beginning, as I discussed previously, we knew from the beginning that we need to integrate the results of the project into the daily workflow of healthcare organizations. And that's why we have focused a lot of work in making APIs to connect different parts of the platform. Regulation is there. We know that any AI-based algorithm needs to pass a regulation, mostly if it's intended for diagnosis, and that's a work that we are currently doing. And everything, all of this are, in my humble opinion, the key success, the key features to consider when wanting to market and successfully commercialize such a solution. So this was all for me. Thank you for listening, and I hand you the lead, Malte.
Thank you, Javier, for this presentation covering the Antari professional home care platform and also this discussion about the various barriers towards the adoption of AI applications in healthcare, as well as what is currently being done to resolve these barriers, also among partners from Backup. Our next panelist will take a more of a meta-level view on our Backup solution. Can I ask Isaac to present your occupational insurance perspective on the Backup modules and what insurers can get out of it?
Okay, hello everyone. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, so sorry. Now, hello, welcome to this webinar. This is Isaac de Castro. I am the management control at Math. Math is a worker insurance company, and we collaborate in Backup project, developing the economic model in this pain, neck and low back pain. Our presentation is focusing the main benefits of this project for insurance companies like us, and you can see in this slide the description of the main benefits for us. The first one is the selection of the optimal care treatment. Then another benefit is optimization of the health resources. Then Backup could be a system to determine the fees or price for each individual. Finally, it could be a fantastic tool for evaluate different treatments. In following slides, we comment the all benefits on detail. As you can see, Backup collect data, different categories like general data, like data relationship with sick leave times, about recurrence. So in Backup we have all kind of data, and we have two pathways. This is the pathways of the treatment of neck pain and low back pain in math is how we treat the patient or worker who has this kind of pain. Based on rich data from real cases, backup has information about the times and costs of pathways for the treatment of neck and low back pain, including multiple personal and social laboral variables of patients. So we can, with this information, insurance companies can select the optimal care treatment for each category of patients, depending on age, gender, occupation, and enrich in base of before cases. This is one of the benefits for us. The second is a relationship with before, because if we select the optimal treatment, we can save or we can focus in the healthcare resource necessary for the treatment of the all patients. Because if we use the resources in efficient way, we refer, for example, in the use of rehabilitation sessions that the patient really need according to the enriched pathway, or the moment to the worker can return to work, not longer that not necessary, not early that the patient is not totally recovered. Treatment can be enriched with effective intervention that consume less healthcare resources, like self-management, because backup can give some advices or some self-management of the pain. This is the second benefit for us. The third is that backup can be used like a tool to determine fees, because we have the information of the past about consume of resources, the duration of the sick leaves. So we have all information to determine the fees for the future for other similar patients or workers who want cover with insurance company. And finally, relationship with two first objectives is that backup can help to entities for evaluate different treatments depends on the main characteristics of the patients, because maybe in sometimes doctors can ask which treatment is better for one kind of patient. They have doubts about rehabilitation session or minimal invasive treatments. So in backup, they could review what is the best result for the patient and the consume of the optimal resources, health resources. So this is all main benefits for entity for insurance companies, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Isaac, for bringing this perspective from an insurer's point of view. For all attendees, you can still ask questions. We're happy to take these up on the questions pane. And before moving to the final agenda point, the Q&A session and the industry forum, let us have Stephanie share some first insights into the acceptance study that she conducted regarding backup. Stephanie, please.
Okay, hello, I hope you can see me all. and hear me all and see my presentation. I can only be seen as one of my colleagues is yes, disconnecting. So then I can also show myself. Okay, thank you, Malte. Yes, I'm the final presentation, and I will try to discuss with you our study we did on the professional user acceptance of the current backup system. I get my screen is paused, it says.
We saw your screen. It's turned off now. Try hitting the sharing screen option and not double clicking, because then it's in pause mode right away. See if
I
that
try.
works.
Yeah, I think it's keeping it paused. So maybe you can take over, Malte, and then I use your sheets.
Yes, let me.
I'm very sorry for this.
Oh, we see it now.
Okay, then I do nothing. So yes, the starting point of this study is, of course, we can assess all kinds of different things when we are working with technology. But we also know from the literature that determinants for successful implementation of e-health are very broad. And one of the determinants are acceptance. And that's why we at RRD try to start in a very early level of developing new technology to also focus on this acceptance, because it is a very important factor to launch a successful e-health application as a clinical decision support system. And that's why that we in this study have the following aim. So our aim is to evaluate the acceptance of clinicians towards the use of a complex clinical decision support system as backup for chronic pain in primary and secondary care. How did we do this? If we look in the literature, there are different modules how we can assess intention to use or behavioral intention to use, such as the TEM module and the module of Unified Theory of Acceptance and Use of Technology, the UTAUT. We could use these two modules, but we were more interested in the factors beyond these modules. So therefore, we did another search in the technology and looked in previous papers on the use of clinical decision support systems on what kind of factors influences the intention to use. And there were demographic characteristics and also factors such as perceived threat to professional autonomy, trusting beliefs, perceived service benefits, perceived service risk, and perceived usefulness. As you see, we borrowed some of the TAM and UTAL factors, but we also added some other factors. Based on this assessment, we prepared an online questionnaire and asked participants to rate the current backup platform. As you know, the current backup platform is now all kind of different pieces, and to give one kind of view, we prepared an animation, and I will show this animation and read for you the text, as no sound is included in this animation. So Fritz is a 62-year-old man, lift a box and experience pain. Oh, it's very fast. The clinician works with the backup system and clinical decision support system for neck and back pain to comparing the data of the patient with the data from large set of patients suffering from pain from all over Europe. This supports the clinicians in her decision-making process. During the consultation, Fritz completes a short questionnaire based on the results of the clinician, immediately receives a forecast of the pain and disability trajectories, as well as the most suitable evidence-based practice. Based on this output of the backup system, the clinicians and Fritz decide together which evidence-based intervention is the best. During the intervention, Fritz used the backup system to monitor these complaints and reflect on the impact of the chosen intervention with his clinician. So, very fast, but this is the animation we show to our participants, and afterwards we asked them to complete the questionnaire. This was done in the Netherlands, so the animation was in Dutch. If we focus on our results, we see in total 135 people were willing to start with filling in the questionnaire, and only 104 completed the questionnaire. And if we look at the different subsets, there were 77 physicians who started. There were clinicians from primary care and clinicians for secondary care. And also for the clinicians who completed the online questionnaire, we see a same deviation between these three groups. When we look at the demographic, there are comparable male and female population. The age in years is something below 50. And what is striking is that were especially people with a lot of years in practice and working in especially smaller practices. And they had an average of a neutral faith in care technology. Also, the numbers for the three different groups are quite comparable, with the differences that the group of GPs were mainly male, and they were quite older than, for instance, the clinicians in primary care. But on the other things, they were quite similar. The main question, of course, is acceptance. Were they willing to use the backup system? And it was nice to see that more than 3/4 of the population was willing to use the backup system, given presented to them by the animation. But if we go into depth and look to the different demographics and factors and look in this, we see it's quite a few of moderate answers. So all the scales were on a 1 to 5 Likert scale, and the outcome are around 2 to 2.5 to 3. So it's not very there's not a very strong distinction what factor does what. So, and also when we look at the groups, there are no very big differences between the groups. Therefore, we looked at the correlations between all the factors and intention to use, and we see that intention to use did not significant correlated with gender, age, the number of GP or clinicians in the practice, and the number of years in practice, as these were mentioned in previous literatures or papers. But we also saw some significant correlation with the faith in care technology, perceived threat to personal autonomy, trusting beliefs, perceived service benefit, perceived service risk, and perceived usefulness. And the next step was to do a multiple linear regression analysis to get some better feeling what factors really counted. And there were two associated factors. The faith in care technology was associated but not significant, but perceived service risk and perceived usefulness were both significant associated factors. So it means that there is some importance to take these factors into account. Just a short conclusion or wrap up. Given our results, we saw that the majority of the clinicians in primary and secondary care were willing to use the backup system to treat the patients with chronic pain. Next to that, we saw different factors that are correlated with intention to use, and also two factors who were significantly associated with intention to use. Given this, we do the following implications for implementation. First, we think it's important for successful implementation that a proper introduction of the complex clinical decision support system. Clinicians need to be aware of the actual benefits and risk of these systems, and this can be done by proper education and training of the clinicians, and also by correct positioning of the technology. As mentioned before, I think it was Kirsten who mentioned this, that technology should also be an addition and not a replacement, and especially not by clinical decision support system. They should help the clinicians, not be an extra struggle. A next step is that we want to assess the acceptance after the use of backup. So in different pilots, we are trying to find out when clinicians used, for instance, the Self-Back app to see whether or not they accept this kind of technology in their workflow and daily clinical practice. Okay, this was my presentation. This was not only work by me, but also by my colleagues Lex van Velsen and Miriam Cabrita. And please take over, Malte, for the Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie, for sharing your early research insights into the acceptance of the backup solutions. We will now use most of the remaining time to take up questions that were raised during the session, and you do also have time still to post your questions on the questions pane. Please understand that we may not be able to take up all questions. We will aim to respond also later after this event on our LinkedIn event page that you can reach via www.bit.ly/backup-demo. Backup-demo, all capital letters. We will post the link also on the chat box in a few seconds. So perhaps let me start with the first question that came in by Gokce, which I want to direct perhaps to Jonathan and Milton. And the question was, do you create a care plan as a result of a consultation process? And if so, which format do you use to create the care plans? Milton and Jonathan, perhaps you do have an answer.
Yeah, I'll start by talking about the clinical side and let Milton answer on the format side. So certainly, I think we are creating a care plan, although we wouldn't use that technology and it isn't formalized as a care plan. But what we have seen is that by helping to give a treatment selection tool and identifying treatments that have been selected for an individual and having all of that SNOMED CT coded, that can get recorded in the medical record. And we are hoping that we will be able to pull that together in a useful way so that that looks like a care plan to the patient, so that they can clearly leave that consultation knowing what the next steps are for both them and for their clinician, and that that's something they could share with their clinician next time they attend. So absolutely, it is, although we haven't formalized it in that way, as I know there's a lot of research specifically around care plans and we've not been doing that, we have conceptualized it as something that is clearly giving patients control of what the management plan is for them and what their next steps are. As to the format, I'll let Milton answer that aspect.
Well, yes. Regarding the format, we work together with the clinician in the case of the stratification model with Jonathan about what are the best way to show the information for both the clinician and possible and also the patients in case of the summary letter. So nowadays there are a lot of visualization tools and strategies to make the information useful. So I think an important point is that we collaborated very close with Jonathan in this yes, on the different visualizations of the tool.
Thank you, Jonathan and Milton. If there's follow-up questions from the attendee who asked that question, you can always raise your hand. So in this regard, Gokce or anybody else who has a question, follow-up question on this, please raise your hand, and we may also ask you to unmute so you can raise your question right away. All right, so the next question was also directed to Jonathan directly. Ben says, hi to everybody. With regards to self-management, is the intention to deliver this to patients prior to them seeing a clinician, or will it always be prescribed by clinicians after going through stratification?
Yeah, so the way that we've set up our first contact tool is clearly for, the clinician is the user. The resources that we've put together as the self-management resources that you're highlighting, those aren't exclusively things that have to be prescribed. So I know that if I go to Versus Arthritis, I'll get a whole range of those resources available online for patients. And I know that Versus Arthritis is encouraging a lot of those resources to be things that patients can access directly. So absolutely, Ben, I think that the self-management picker is something that could be done as almost a browse interface for patients to have a look around. There's no reason why that specifically needs to be sort of clinician prescribed, as it were. At the moment, though, that's the way we've set it up within the backup first contact web app that I demonstrated. I hope that answers your question.
I'll always give just a couple of seconds to raise your hand if you do have follow-up questions before moving on to the next question. I don't see a hand popping up. So if you do have follow-up questions, there's this raise your hand button on the GoToWebinar that you can use, or you can alternatively also use the chat box, the question pane. Then I do have a question for Wendy from Visvadep. The question being, what about using other machine learning models like neural networks to improve the accuracy of the prediction models?
Yes, we've taken a look at it. But for example, for neural networks, we need more data, more to get this. And in another research, I compared more models together. So in this way, I'm tuning on this. For the triage study, it worked out that the booster tree worked best with all compared to the other models. Does this answer your question?
We do have someone raising their hand. Yes, let me. How can I unmute you? All right, you should be unmuted now, Visvadep.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, thank you. That answers the question. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Perfect. Just unmute yourself again so we don't have background noises. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Malte, you're muted.
Yes.
All right. I told our nice attendee to mute himself, and I muted myself right away to avoid background noises. All right. So once again, I do have a question for Wendy. Thanks for the notice. Wendy, Gokce asks, in addition to the predictive models that are built for referrals, whether you have also worked on predictive models for possible treatment options, for instance, different types of medication or different rehabilitation options.
Yes, I worked on this myself, mainly in the touch in multidisciplinary pain rehabilitation and what kind of treatment options. But Jonathan in the backup project also has different medication options. And maybe Jonathan, you can tell more about it.
Yeah, so when we did our systematic review of low back and neck pain guidelines across Europe, we identified different medication options, those over the counter, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, weak opioids, and even atypical analgesia. And what we've done is put those into those different low, medium, and high risk strata. So, for example, over the counter is only the only treatment that's recommended for low risk patients, whereas for medium risk patients, we were suggesting both the non-steroidals and weak opioids. And then for high-risk patients, you can add in the atypical analgesia. So that sort of steer around which medication options are appropriate for which risk groups is already built into that first contact web app, as it is already. I hope that answers that question.
Okay. Then Jonathan, a question was raised by Mark Howard. Welcome, Mark Howard. We've been in an email exchange already. Mark asks, given the explosion of digital health in the MSK space that you mentioned in your presentation, Jonathan, how are professional therapists, their clients, and referring sources easily going to pick out what is the best or the most effective and of value in terms of delivering sustainable outcomes for rehabilitation and return to work?
I think this is a really good question, and I think lots of people are wanting to know, how do we evaluate all of these digital health technologies? I respond and say that, you know, NICE has put out a framework for how we evaluate digital health technologies well, but particularly at Kiel, we've been working on a project specifically about that called the MSK Tracker Project, all about trying to produce a standard in terms of how we evaluate quantitatively and qualitatively MSK services, and particularly doing that in an online way. So do talk to me more about it, Mark. I know we've got a meeting planned in the diary So hopefully I can tell you more about it then, but I agree it's a key issue, and I think it's one where we need some leadership and some strategy around, because at the moment lots of people are trying to do it in different ways, and it's rather technology focused rather than quality improvement focused. So I think we've really got to shift our thinking to learning health systems and thinking clearly from that perspective, rather than just thinking from a technology user perspective, which I think limits quality of care discussions, which is where we really need to be. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, then we also had a question again by Mark for Kerstin, referring to the Selfback app. So the question was, given that we are all idiosyncratic by nature, what data matching drives the link with past experience from the patients?
Yes, that's a really good question. What we did in developing this CBR system is that we sat down with experts and developed specific similarity measures that help us comparing the answers to the questionnaires, as well as involving the goal achievement to do these comparisons. And we are running 3 different services when generating these plans. One trying to determine the step goal, the second one for the exercise program, and the third one to figure out what are the next educational items. And especially for the exercise program and educational items, we have a combination of the case-based reasoning system as well as a rule-based system. So we always produce like a priority queue, and then tailor the outcome of using as much information about the current user as possible. So it's really a combination of trying to having good similarity measures to find most similar patients, plus using information we have about every single user to do the tailoring, so that we try to be as personalized as possible. And of course, right now, with the first RCT providing a good set of data, we are refining. So we really try to understand what the system picks up, what the user likes, and how we can move into that. I hope that answers your question.
Probably right away as a follow-up on that, also Mark asked, then is work type and function one of the data sets that you are using?
Yes, so we have the work characteristics that are asked in the main data set. So we ask the amount of work, whether someone is working part-time, not at work, or full-time. And then we have the characteristics in 4 categories, like mostly involving sitting, then much walking, lifting, and heavy physical labor. So we have a rough classification. And also function, we use the patient-specific function scale, and we also ask in these weekly tailoring questions on and off, I think max every 4 weeks, how much the pain has actually interfered with the function. So we have a few of those questions. But in general, it's a fairly large data set. So from the questionnaire, we have about almost 140 items to pick from, plus the app detailed data.
Okay, thank you, Kerstin. There's a couple of more questions for you, Kerstin.
Okay.
One was asked by Nadine. Nadine asks, what is the engagement levels like with self-back, and in particular, are people with back pain responding to the long-term data collection on their outcomes? So the question is about participation rates of those invited and eligible with the system, and the follow-up rates over the longer term.
Well, we are currently in the middle of the RCT, so it's really preliminary data I can talk about. We can see that those that are engaging are really engaging. So those who pick up early on are really following up. So then we're really happy. We have also for the questionnaires pretty good response rates. I think we are roughly around 80% of those who are engaged also answering the follow-up questionnaires. So this looks really promising. But as I mentioned earlier, we just passed the 3-month mark for everyone. So for the long term, I guess we have to wait until after summer to see what we get after 6 and 9 months.
Thank you. Another question was asked by Ben forecasting. He likes the Selfback app and asks, have behavior change theory or behavior change techniques been considered, or will this be purely driven by artificial intelligence?
Yes, thanks. Yes, absolutely. Something I did not mention due to the shortage of time. We have actually a second engine that sends personalized notifications. And for those notifications, we use the behavior change techniques to figure out when, how, and what to send. So we send 1 to 2 notifications during the day that should nudge. And also when we were building the overall intervention, we had behavior change techniques in mind. So we were looking into which items could actually be transferred into a digital intervention, which is quite challenging. Having more experience now, there is much more we can do for sure, because we could have several agents running and looking into the individualized behavior change and not on a group base. So we have started, but I believe there is more to gain in the collaboration or in the combination of behavior change techniques and AI. That's a very interesting field.
Okay, last question for you at this stage, Kerstin. This was asked by Gokce. What kind of parameters from the EHRs, from the electronic health records of the patients, do you use in the training of predictive algorithms?
We have started this work, and so far, I must say it looks like it's a combination between pain self-efficacy measures or questionnaires plus the baseline variables of our predictors. So, for example, if we try to predict pain, it seems to be a good combination to use the pain self-efficacy and the pain level at baseline to build good predictors. It's this is also the data set is probably not rich enough to have very detailed answers, but in general these combination look very good, and so this is why we also need to continue running the RCTs and getting richer data sets, also more diverse patient groups to have a better answer on this. But yeah, it looks like a combination of pain or self-efficacy and then the target value.
Thank you, Kerstin. Who else? What else? So we have Stephanie. One question that was asked by Nadine. She says, simplicity is key to ensure successful implementation. How long do you estimate it takes for a clinician to use the backup system that you have developed to date?
Yeah, it's a very nice question, and I completely agree. When the technology should be simple and very easy to use, kind of plug and play. But I don't know anymore how to answer this question. For instance, a few months ago, when we went to go to a GP and asked them in the Netherlands to do a video consult, they didn't want to do video consults. But now, with all the measurements we have, considering the COVID-19 pandemic, suddenly all the GPs in the Netherlands are willing to do video conferences. So I agree with you. The technology should be simple and easy to use. I cannot give an estimation how long it takes until technology such as backup can be used. There are already some clinical decision support systems that are used and are incorporated into the systems of GPs, and I think that's very important to be part of the workflow of the GPs. And when we establish this, it could go fast, but I cannot give you a number in years because I'm still a little bit flabbergasted on the GPs who suddenly are willing to use a video conference for their patients in the Netherlands. I'm not sure how it is in other European countries, but this is my view on the Netherlands.
Thank you, Stephanie. So I do have 2 more questions, I think, before we can wrap up. Milton, one question is, how is the data security being managed within the Multics platform?
Malta, sorry, Nadine is raising her hand to ask a question if you have time.
Oh, yes, we do have the time.
Yeah, okay.
So Nadine, you're unmuted.
Thank you, and thanks, Stephanie. My question wasn't so much how many years might it take for technology to become, part of clinical practice, but rather that the system that you've developed so far, how long does it actually take an individual clinician to use it with a patient? Has that been tested at all yet? Just to give a sense of how long it takes.
No, sorry, I didn't. I interrupted differently. No, we didn't test it because at this point there is not a running system. But in the what Jonathan talked about, in the first clinician contact tool, we will have a thorough usability test, and one of the tasks is to use the system, and then we can determine how long it takes to use the system, or how long it takes to use the first contact clinician tool. But it should just take maybe a few seconds, a minute. How longer it takes, the lower the rate of implementation of a successful acceptance will be.
Thank you.
But also, Kirsten, want to comment on this, or?
This was more in the other direction that you had answered before, so I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. So just repeating the last question then for Milton. How is data security being managed in the platform, Milton?
Okay, yes, we use the best practices and the more secure standards to manage the data. This is done in both in the cloud layer with all the data encrypted and using the secure protocols to move the data from one place to another. And at the application layer, we also have many security procedures to, for example, to share data between two different peoples or to store data in different locations. This is a cloud environment in which the data can be federated with different security configurations for each type of data. So we can say that the only at the security layer is everything covered. The difficult part is more on the regulatory and the ethic part, which need to be managed at each location for each partner. I hope this answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we have one more. Do we have one more question here? No. All right, just some Mark thanking for the interesting presentation. Okay. Yeah. Right, I think we have responded to all or at least most of the questions. We aim to get back with some more specific questions that we couldn't answer today on the LinkedIn event page. Okay. So that leaves me with just saying thank you to all of our panelists and all the attendees for your contributions, the presentation, and the good questions that we've received. If you want to reach out, please use the bit.ly link that we present here that directs you directly to the LinkedIn event page, and you can connect and investigate options for future collaboration, future research options, or also just to make comments beyond what was discussed today on this page. Also, we want to invite you to take the quick 9-item survey that will pop up once this meeting has closed, because in the end, we're all here to learn, so we would love to learn from you as well. So please take the survey that will pop up. It just takes a couple of minutes, really. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Malta.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.